My name is Coetzee, and I'm part of the team who organized this event. But this morning I am in the privileged position to welcome you at Future Africa. Now, Future Africa, you can see the emblem up there, and down here, it links individuals to each other, and it links individuals and communities to each other, countries and continents to each other, in a way that we try to focus on interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research. Very complicated. But in essence, it means that we try and motivate theologians to talk to engineers, engineers talking to medical doctors, and academic people to talk to normal people, and normal people to understand what academic people are doing. As you were driving here, you passed the High Performance Center and Elsie de Villiers, then with its high-tech sport events. And then a few meters after that, you drove among some cows and cattle, and then you came to this wonderful facility. And that is exactly what we want you to experience. To understand that we have more than one focus in life, and these focus areas must talk to each other. Therefore, on behalf of the director, Professor Nico, and the kind staff outside working on a public holiday, we want to welcome you at this venue of the University of Pretoria. Outside, you saw the facilities. The toilets are just around the corner. The refreshments will be there throughout the whole day. But don't leave during presentations to go and get refreshments. That's just a kind gesture. It's not a rule. But we'll check you there. The objectives for today is basically to look at the way in which faith-based organizations can assist communities in finding the way in times of distress. It's a long theme, but it's a long problem. And our deliberations today would bring us closer to understanding the role of the faith-based organizations, understanding the impact that we can have, should have, and must have during times of COVID. And then we must also obviously not forget that today is the 27th of April. It's the birthday of the new democratic South Africa. Apparently 27 years ago, we had our wonderful 94 elections. As we sit here, we must please realize that the discussions will be recorded. Ethically, we must tell you that. So, if you want to be on camera, unfortunately, you will have to come to the front here, but otherwise your voice will be recorded. We all have different hats as we are sitting here. Some of us are here to find out what the day is about. Some of us are here to present. Some of us are here to influence. And some of us are here to enjoy the refreshments. But all of us have, each one of us has a particular role to play. You will know what your role is. And in achieving your objectives for the day, I wish you well. I want you to enjoy the facilities, enjoy the discussions and each other. And thank you for being here. You are very welcome. If we look at the program, you will find that we will move towards the introduction of the concept document with Nico Botha and Willie Zieling. They will do the initial introductions, and it will be facilitated by Prof Marshall. Is Prof here?
Unfortunately not.
Not yet. So, Nico, you will make your presentation and then introduce Willie, and then we will capture the discussion afterwards. Is that good? So, now I'm inviting Nico Botha to the front.
Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, colleagues, sisters, brothers. It affords me great pleasure to to be addressing you now briefly. Before I come to that, I just need to say that we were aiming at 40, at a minimum of 40 participants, and we've gone out of our way to bring them in. I know of at least 2 or 3 more people who are definitely on their way here, so they will come. And that will sort of add to our total. Secondly, just a sort of a remark in terms of latching on to what Coetzee Bester has already said, his allusion to the specific date. It's very, very symbolic. The number of 27. We're a good 27 years into our democracy. And if I say our democracy, I'm one of those people who believe that unless you accept that in 1994 there had been a dramatic breakthrough, a decisive breakthrough, it will be very difficult to have a fruitful discussion or conversation with anybody. So I'm accepting that much as things have gone dismally wrong since 1994, much as the revolution in the best sense of the word has gone haywire, I'm accepting that for the sake of Mandela. That's why in my the little bit of writings, and also when I have to present here, there and everywhere, I call it the Mandela Revolution, and I do that deliberately, consciously, because by calling it the Mandela Revolution, I'm sort of implicitly, in my own mind, excluding the shenanigans who have indulged in gross acts of corruption since 1994. I'm excluding those who were out not only to capture the state, but the whole of the country. But I declare, therefore, that for me, 1994 has been a major breakthrough, democratic breakthrough. And that's why I call it the Mandela Revolution. So let me turn to my little presentation here. It started with the encounter between Dr. Willie Zieling, a renowned specialist in infectious diseases, Victoria East Hospital in Turalia, and Colonel Hilton Klein, retired colonel, he was with the SANDF as chaplain, has worked in the office of the Deputy Minister and ultimately Chief of Staff in the office of the Minister of Defense. You would not like me to tell you that, but you can hit me against my head afterwards. So what makes it the more remarkable is that Hilton Klein, identified in a country like South Africa as colored, was a cadre of Umkhonto we Sizwe. So isn't this remarkable? Remarkable things are happening in this country, and this is a typical biblical thing. When there is crisis, deep crisis, when things are beginning to fall apart, that is the very moment that hope emerges. That is the very moment that God makes his appearance to wrought salvation on us, redemption on us in ever new ways. Glory to his name. Then, Professor Hoffie Hofmeyer, renowned church historian from previously we were colleagues at UNISA. He then moved on to the University of Pretoria, a renowned church historian. We came on board, and we had very, very interesting, very intriguing conversations where the issues of attitude, of approach, and of content were very, very important. On attitude, we've decided that, and for me that's very important. It's very important, really, to start with love, because I hated the system of apartheid. It's been the most heinous and most virulent system that you can think of. So for me to now engage in love, in tolerance, is a wonderful way of God changing my heart. Praise be to his wonderful name. But I don't want this change of heart to be subverted, because I will remain critical and prophetic. Praise be to his name. So there was the issue of love. We said the only way that we can proceed is in love. And if we want to start this movement, the movement should be based on love. We should feed into love as much as possible. My daughter here, she will bear me out, because herself and my son Nico in the past would often engage me seriously and challenge me by asking me, but are you still bitter? Are you stuck in apartheid? I say, no, I'm not stuck in apartheid. I'm just trying to be true to myself and to be true to God, and I will not use these things as a cover-up. I will not use these things as a way of subverting the reality that we find ourselves in. So we said, let there be love, let there be tolerance. Let us agree to disagree. And Willie and I had very, very interesting conversations. He would buy me a meal. I've only bought you a meal once. That should also be breakdown, because that's still part of the old paradigm. I owe you a meal, Willie, in love and in tolerance. And in terms of content, very briefly, we said perhaps it should be more about calling the church to account. It should be more about how to proceed in love and in prayer and work for the welfare of the church in particular and society at large. And how to find reconciliation by seeking justice, of course. Once again, that might have been my little accentuation. How can South African Christians, that's the question, help one another in little cells, in small groups, or some, like my honorable friend here, Dr. Rolf Meyer from the Christian Institute. He has worked with Beyersford here. It is such a wonderful privilege to know you, Rolf. Yeah, I don't know whether you passed, but you've been a good student, and he's done a doctorate with me. Praise be to God. So, coming together in cell groups, in small groups, or comunidade de base, base communities, to live out more concretely and more consistently the values of the reign of God, of love. How can Mamelodi people and Eersterus people love Silverton people and Waterkloof people? How? Through Jesus Christ our Lord, it is possible. If we cannot live up to that, if we cannot live exemplary lives, then we should accept that this country is in its glory. So how do people come together in love, seeking peace, working for reconciliation and justice? I think that is how we understand the movement, and of course my colleagues are free to contradict me, because we've decided to we've agreed to disagree. I'm almost done. I think I've got one more note. So I think I should leave it at that by sort of, in conclusion, saying that we hope that this thing will take off. I can just mention Willie Moffey and Colonel Klein that the idea is to have, as a follow-up, a biggish webinar with church leaders, 20, 30, whatever the total might be, and to sell this idea to them. And from there then, to go to the grassroots level, to go to the ground, and see whether, starting in the province of Gauteng, we can bring together little cells, small groups, base communities, to deal with these issues. And if this is not too ambitious, but I'm saying this on the basis of the energizing presence of the Holy Spirit. I'm saying that on the basis of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm saying that on the basis of who God is for us and what He is for us. On that basis, I'm saying that, who knows, this might become a mighty movement where little groups all over are living up to the demands of the gospel and living out the values of the reign of God. Thank you. And I believe, and this is one of the conversations that we've had openly, honestly, with one another, that unless all of this is premised on justice, it will come to naught. So that's the title of my talk. If I move on, is this the suffering from the rib? Yes, I think that's my next slide, where I use as a heading, suffering from the Rip van Winkle syndrome. You know this remarkable story of Rip van Winkle and how he got in a potion or some drink and then fell asleep and ultimately slept for 20 years. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. has helped me tremendously with his little statement that the most interesting issue is perhaps not that Van Winkle slept for 20 years, but in fact that he slept through a revolution. And I'm sometimes wondering whether the church in South Africa has not fallen asleep and sleeping through a revolution, whether the gospel that we preach or the way that we project that gospel does not rather serve as a kind of opium for the people, instead of helping them to come to grips with the South African reality, the stark South African reality, on the basis of their faith. But be it as it may, I say that from the onset, there was, with a group of four, a very deep concern. And we've expressed that openly and honestly about the church's lack of response to a very dangerous situation in South Africa. And therefore, you will find in the basis document, in the concept document, you will find very strong words like trauma, distress, mourning, and we are posing a number of very, very pertinent questions in the document. And of course, we also reflect a little bit on how COVID-19 and the concomitant lockdown, how those have exposed us completely. We knew all along that the unemployment rate in the country was gross. We're now speculating on whether it's 37% or 40% or even higher. We knew all along about the sort of gross socioeconomic inequalities, and you'll know that we have now passed a country like Brazil. We've overtaken them as the country most notorious in the world for its gross socioeconomic discrepancies. We reflected on that a little bit. So the wound of the nation is showing glaringly. That's what we were saying to one another in terms of its fractures, dislocations, hunger and poverty, and all of the other issues mentioned there. We've also said that the focus on the church, because that was what we've said from the onset, it's perhaps more about the introspection of the church itself than about the prophetic ministry of the church vis-a-vis the state of the government. And of course, you will see from the document that that is factored into what we have written down. The prophetic role of the church in society remains very, very important as long as we arrive at a new understanding of prophetic. I think I come from there, so I can speak from experience. I think it's been a bit reductionist in terms of understanding prophetic to only mean no, 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 no. When in fact it can also mean yes, yes, yes. So, but let me try to explain that even further by saying that we've read the Psalms and the prophets and all of the Jesus even for that matter in a reductionist fashion. So we would be very good at opposition, opposing the apartheid regime, opposing so and so, but very bad at understanding that the prophets have projected a very holistic paradigm, so that it was not only about criticizing or not only about standing up against the powerful and the mighty, but it was also about rekindling hope, rekindling the dream of a situation that is qualitatively different. So that's why if you read the prophet of Isaiah or Micah or any of those prophets, there is a very clear vision emerging. This vision of people building houses, but not robbed. They live in those houses themselves. The vision of people planting vineyards, but enjoying the fruit of the vineyards themselves. This vision of an old man getting to the age of 100, and then people will laugh at him almost and say, but why does he die so young? The vision of children no longer suffering from malnutrition and undernourishment, no longer suffering from kwashiorkor. That vision is there with the prophets, but we've been reductionists because we were only opposing. So I think we have an opportunity now to keep these two in creative tension, if you like, so that on the one hand there is a prophetic role in terms of constantly being up against it. Like this gentleman who survived a shipwreck, and when he landed at this island and woke up, the very first thing he was asking, is there a government? I'm against it. Glory to God. So of course, we need to stand up to the nonsense that is being created in this country sometimes. That's fine, but we should also, and this is where the creative tension comes in, hold on to the vision, to the dream that things could be different. But dream from the perspective of the poorest of the poor, dream from the perspective of the destitute and the unemployed, and those millions of South Africans still, as I'm saying somewhere here, languishing in the dungeon of poverty and of squalor,